Hey, welcome back in to Respect Her Game. I believe you were our week one guest host, Annabelle Hasselbeck, back with us. The reason you haven't been back for a couple weeks is you've been really busy with graduating, number one, which I think you did before episode one, but also winning a national championship with your lacrosse team and the BC Eagles. So congratulations on that. We're going to definitely make this show a lot about that and the behind the scenes, not just the X's and O's, but really kind of what it's like being a student athlete, maybe the women's game compared to the men's game, resources, that kind of thing, the exposure. But also at the end of the show, a little later on, we're going to touch upon what was an extremely successful inaugural PWHL season that wrapped up in Boston, actually, last night with the Walter Cup being awarded to Minnesota, PWHL Minnesota winning over Boston. And even though Boston fans are disappointed, what a successful story for the league, for women's hockey. So we're going to talk about that. But let's start with, again, a big congratulations. And you just got home, I think, Monday afternoon. How are you feeling? How's the body? I think you said your voice is a little sore from screaming, but how did it all go?
Yes, thank you so much. My voice is gone fully. This is the best that it sounds. So I apologize for the raspiness from the screaming and celebrating. But yeah, got home Monday afternoon with the team. It was an incredible weekend, and just to be able to do it with that group of girls, that team. Before we left for the Final Four, we had a huge team meeting in our locker room, and we said, okay, what are we going to get behind before we leave? And Team 32, we're the 32nd team at Boston College Women's Lacrosse. That's what we were getting behind is, okay, this is the team that we want to go to the championship with this year. And yeah, it was just incredible experience. And honestly, I'm still in shock. I'm still in shock that I graduated school forever. I kind of think that August is going to come around and I'm going to be getting, okay, I need to get my clothes, things ready for my dorm room. And I'm just not going to be going back to Boston College. So it's all crazy, still in shock, but just so thankful for that weekend.
Yeah, I definitely, we're obviously going to talk about the championship, the Final Four, but really quick, pivoting because of what you just said. You know, when we first started chatting, you're thinking about what next steps to do in your career. You want to be in the business. You obviously have a great first step with being here on this podcast and doing things with NESN. But where are you standing on that? And the reason I ask, I like, fans and young women and men listening, that it's definitely not a straight and narrow path. And
Mhm.
even once your foot's in the door, there's still a lot of work to be had. Are you going to continue? Are you able to continue covering the BC Eagles? Like what's your plan if there is one in place yet?
Yeah, no, I am a BC Eagle like for life. And so if I could keep covering BC sports, I would love it. As for the time right now, I'm going to be doing a little bit more on the Sports Spectrum side, which is a faith and sports podcast. So I'm going to be doing some media
Yeah.
work for them alongside Respect Her Game. And I'm actually going to be living in Seattle, Washington, working for the Seattle Seahawks this summer up until around their first home game. So just going to be with them throughout training camp, doing some digital broadcasting and working with their communication team. So like you said, it is kind of all over. It's a lot of different little things that I think you need to start off with in this industry, and that's what I'm finding out. But thankfully, I have had the opportunity to, before I graduated, get on the phone with people like you and other women in this industry and other people who have gone before me. And they kind of gave me the heads up, hey, your path is not going to look like, it might not look like a traditional 9 to 5 like your friends. And you might have a few jobs at one time. And you might have to be more of that freelancer in the beginning. And so I think knowing that before I left college was so huge for me, because if you aren't going on the typical path like everyone else, it can kind of feel a little weird and honestly
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But I think knowing that and being okay with it, and also like learning how to like that, I think is going to be super important.
Yes, totally. You mentioned Seattle. That's the opposite end of the country. That's another coast.
It
So
is.
moving is another thing. We've talked a lot about just how unlinear this career path could be, and absolutely that you might have to jump from here to there to this job, to learning something completely different, to an internship, back to working at a restaurant to pay your bills. Like there's just so much going on. But since I met you, you seem like a hustler. And first of all, congrats. I didn't even know, like, fans, we did
Oh,
not
thank
talk about
you.
this. This isn't planned. I didn't even know about your position with
Oh,
the
it's all,
Seahawks. So
you know what? It's funny.
that's
I
huge.
saw my best friend from high school the other day, and we talk all the time. And I texted her. I was like, "Hey, you graduated last night. Are you home?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm home." I'm like, "Great, let's hang out." And I was talking about it in the car to somebody, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll be in Seattle." She's like, "You didn't even tell me you were gonna be in Seattle." So I was like, "I'm sorry. There's just been a lot with graduation, the playoffs." So I actually need to recap a lot of people, give some life updates, and get life updates from a lot of people. But yeah, just crazy, but really excited. You know, Seattle is on the other side of the country, but I grew up there. I lived there for 10 years growing up. So hopefully I can refine the roots. And like you were talking to Laura the other day on this podcast,
Yeah.
she was in Alaska right out of college.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, hearing Laura's story, I was like, okay, Alaska. Like, I can go to Seattle.
Yes, totally. I was actually going to mention, Laura, what I loved about that is, and something what you just said was that it's learning how to love and learning how to fall in love with the process, because it isn't always easy and you might be missing your family or far away. But I loved Laura's take in the sense that, probably a little isolated and cold for that whole year, but
Yep.
she didn't know a lot about hockey either, was assigned to cover a hockey team there and made the most out of it. Now absolutely loves hockey, knows a lot about the game, the dog sledding stuff. It's taking the pieces that are in front of you and really making the most of them. And trust me, I'll be the first to put my hand up and say there are so many times when I've kind of been living in the future when I was in that stage and not the present, where I just want to get out of where I was in the sense of advance, or I'm not happy here. And luckily for me, I didn't feel that way throughout, my entire placement. If I was at one place that I wasn't very happy with, I would remember to come back and be present. But looking back, like, I'm really proud of myself of how I handled some things. And sometimes I'm like, damn, I really wish I was more in the moment and really valued that, like, one day you're not going to be doing, even though it's hard. I used to wake up at 3 a.m. And many people still do for the 6 a.m. news, but wake up at 3 a.m. to do the sports
Yes.
broadcast. And I hated it so much sometimes because I couldn't have family dinners. I'd be in bed at 8, or I'd be working weekends and my friends would be out. And that was hard. But sometimes I'm like, I could have made that a little bit more of my own and, like, just, really given it a little more. And so that the falling in love with the process, like, looking back, I don't want to wake up at 3 a.m. anymore ever again until I have kids. But there were something special about being up before the city's awake, being one of 30 people in the studio where you kind of can bond over, like, having a coffee so desperately. And there were so many things that you kind of wish away that you'll never really get back. But anyway, rant over, but it's about appreciating the journey and knowing that one day, I don't know what your ultimate goal is, but you will look back at this time in Seattle in the summer and being like, damn, like, I had this freedom to do digital content or make it my own or whatever it is. And so I hope you take advantage of that. And I know you're going to crush it for sure.
Mhm. No, that's good advice. Be present. I love it. Our team says, be where your boots are. And I love that. Be where your
Yes.
feet are.
Let's get back to your team because you guys won the national championship. So the journey, what was the travel like? Final Four, and we're going to talk about how you wanted to bookend the championships, because I asked you before we got on. In your first year, you were you'd won. It was COVID though, so now as a senior, you had this experience to do it again. But first and foremost, as someone from Canada who didn't grow up with college sports, what's the travel like in the Final Four? What are the resources like? Take me through that first.
Yeah, it was awesome. We actually got to charter, which was super cool. We took one plane on the way there, full team, and then we took 2 planes on the way back, 2 smaller planes. So we had upperclassmen and underclassmen, which is really funny, honestly, because it felt like you were on too many private jets with your teammates. But yeah, we got to charter the way there. We had on the way when we came back, we had a bus that had national championship, like Fathead sticker on it. It was like actually unbelievable. I don't know how they pulled that off within 24 hours. It was insane.
Oh.
Got to stay. It's actually funny how they do the hotel seating. The number 1 seed gets to stay at like the best hotel. Number 2 seed, second best hotel, 3 seed. So the 2 hotels that we were at last year, And this year, so the venue was the same. We were in Cary, North Carolina at a soccer facility. And they're like the two hotels for the 2 seed and 3 seed are like 100 yards from each other. And last year we were the 3 seed coming into the Final Four. And this year we were the 2 seed. And so it was really funny how they're both very nice hotels, nothing bad to say. But there was a noticeable difference between the number 2 and the number 3 seed hotel. And when we pulled up, we walked into the hotel, we were all like, okay, like this is way nicer than the one right down the street. So that was just cool in itself. There are balloons in the lobby, big posters. Every door has a welcome to the national championship, like decorations, just really incredible. And all the staff at the hotel were on top of it, know that we were there. All right, we got 45 girls in this place. Like it's going to be craziness around here.
It's going to be wild. Yes. Yeah.
So wild. The poor elevators and all the people that had to see us coming down for meetings up and down. I mean, the other people at the hotel, like tough weekend to be there with us. But we had incredible accommodations from the time that we left Boston College to the time that we got back. And that was just really, really exciting. And I think no matter whatever level or whatever grade you're in, from my freshman year to my senior year, seeing a cookie in the team room that said national championship on it with like fondant, like it's so cool. And it's such a little thing, but it is really exciting and just cool to be a part of it.
So I didn't think you guys would charter. That's a very cool experience. And, travel and style, like you said, with the fat head and everything, like sounds like everything's, organized, ready to go. People are welcoming you. What about there in terms of media coverage? What was that like for you guys? And I should have asked you this before. I'm going to ask and risk sounding really dumb, but the men's tournament is going on at the same time. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So they actually played. They played. No, you're good.
About the media coverage.
Yeah, the media coverage has definitely elevated significantly from both, I would say, the team side, like our Boston College side, and the NCAA side. We had at our warm-ups, at our walkthroughs, in our practices throughout the Final Four, we had multiple NCAA photographers, videographers there. I think they even did a mic'd up at every team's walkthrough, I believe. And so that was just crazy to see, because I was scrolling on Instagram seeing content of my team, but it wasn't being posted from Boston College where it usually is. It was being posted from NCAA lacrosse, IL women lacrosse. And that was just really cool, number one, because you get to see your team in all different aspects. Oh, look, that's a picture of someone stretching, kind of funny. But there was definitely an overwhelming sense of coverage from this national championship. And I think there's definitely been a lot of media coverage because it is a national championship. And I've been fortunate enough to be with my team the last 4 years in that game and for that Final Four weekend. But yeah, definitely an overwhelming sense of media coverage this year. And even the coverage from like ESPN on their Instagram, like there were a few lacrosse highlight clips from our tournament on the women's account. And I know my teammate made SportsCenter top 10. I think she was number 3 play for her backhanded, one of her goals in the championship. So just super cool, because I know when I was in high school, I was not seeing Boston College women's lacrosse on top 10 plays. Like that was not a common thing. And even this year alone, I think we've had a few SportsCenter top 10 plays from my teammates. So just crazy that that's been the progression from even when I wasn't in college to now, and to be able to leave and have that be my last lacrosse game ever with that amount of media coverage, with that amount of support, with the fans, with just being there with my team was truly incredible.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up a good point in terms of like top 10s. We're just used to seeing, first of all, the pro sports. So not a lot of college unless it was March Madness and, and everyone's has what are they called, brackets and this and that. But so we're seeing more college plays, and of course now the women highlights from WNBA or the PWHL or the women's lacrosse team. So that great job with that and the coverage. And I think social media really helps with that too, because you've got anyone and you can hire, not to say that like a student couldn't do as good of a job as a professional, of course, but you can hire a student who's creative, who has less, is thinking maybe
Mhm.
more outside the box and stuff, and they don't need a whole team to produce things, and you're seeing these things go viral, or they're just around, or just fans with their phones, helps the coverage as well, and the resources are a little less expensive, so you can spend
Mhm.
more resources with that. Your final game, you guys had a crazy story, like comeback, obviously, from down 6-0 in the first quarter. Take me through that whole game. I don't know how it works in terms of team communication
Mhm.
between quarters. Do you guys huddle together? Can you go
Mhm.
over plays? Like what? Let's start with the start of the game, and then you guys all of a sudden going down 6-0. What was that feeling
Yeah.
like with the team?
Yeah, it's crazy to hear. Oh my gosh, it was one of the biggest comebacks ever, and it was one of the craziest games in women's lacrosse history because we were so in shock of what had just happened that I didn't even realize that. We got back to Boston College and we had a full welcome committee after we got off the bus, and there were local news stations, and one of the reporters asked, he's like, "Hey, how does it feel to be a part of one of the biggest comebacks ever in women's lacrosse?" And my teammates and I were like, "Oh my gosh, did that really happen? Like, was that really what the storyline was?" So it was honestly crazy. And I think going out of the game, like leaving the locker room for that first quarter, I would not say that we had a lack of energy. We had any lapse in momentum, but we did not come out hot. We did not come out hot, and it showed. And we made a few adjustments in our huddles. But I think a moment that stuck out to me and that will stick out to me forever was our coach brought us in and she said, "Hey, like, I think this was between the first quarter and the second quarter. She said, "Hey, don't worry about the score. Like, we're not worried about the score. We need to fix X, Y, and Z." And we all kind of just did one of these, like, shook our heads, like, eyes wide, like, locked on our coach. And later on, she said, she was like, "I was actually shocked that you guys weren't like, what do you mean, don't worry about the score? Like, we're down
Mm,
6-0." And we were all like, "Yeah,
mhm.
like, we got you. Like, tell us more. What do we need to do?" And that was a really cool moment because, one, I didn't even realize that that was our response in the moment.
Right.
And
Yeah.
two, because that was our response. And I think you can attribute it to a lot of things. I think you can attribute to the leadership that we had on the team this year. I think you can attribute to the souls of the girls on the team. I refuse to lose attitude.
Mhm.
And I think just with the experience that our team has had playing in for the last 4 national championship games, in the last game last year, same venue, same team, we lost by 12. So, all
Mm.
right, you're going to tell me I'm down. Like, now what? Like, cake, we've been there, basically. We've been there. So I
Yeah.
think that, like, as tough as that last year's game was to lose to Northwestern so horribly and just honestly getting embarrassed, was so cool to be able to turn that around. And especially for our team to have that experience, like, okay, like, we've been down before, like, now what, like, what are we going to do about it? So there were
Right.
definitely a lot of intense huddles, but I think something that really helped us throughout that to get to that point was, when you lose national championships, it's really hard and you don't want to talk about it because there's a lot of emotions and feelings and probably some regrets there. But our captains and our coaches made the decision before we got to the hotel to the Final Four in North Carolina. Hey, like, we got to leverage this experience. If we've been to the last 7 championships, this group of girls has been, the senior class has been to 4. We've only won 1. Like, we got to talk about it and we got to use it. And that was something that I really appreciated from our leadership group and our coaches. And so our captains brought our team in. They said, "Hey, for the next 2 days, we're going to do a little circle talk, and half of the people are going to go today, half of the people are going to go tomorrow night." This was before our semifinal game. "And you're going to talk about any experience you have with the Final Four. You could be a fan, you could be 6 years old, you could be the best person on the field, you could be on the opposite team. We've had people
Mm.
who are freshmen, transfers, seniors who have been here for 4 years." And that was a really cool discussion because we had people laughing their heads off. We had people bawling their eyes out. I know I was crying when some of my teammates were
Mhm.
talking. Just to hear those stories of, hey, this is when I fell in love with lacrosse, or this is when I, you know, got a yellow card. I was in the penalty box and I felt like it was all my fault. Or this was when I became a BC lacrosse fan because I saw the neon in the stands. Like, just to hear those stories, I think number one, it brought our team closer together than ever, which is crazy because it's your last week of your season. You would never think that a team in the championship is going to get closer in their last week of the
Right.
season. And
Right.
that happened. And so I think having the ability to talk through our experiences of the Final Fours, whether you were playing or you weren't playing, was a huge bonding moment for our team. And it really kind of got out the regrets or the fear or the really great moments that, you hold on to, but those don't matter anymore. Past success does not guarantee future success. And so I think that was a really special moment for me and my team.
So when you talk about like I love that the leadership was like, wait a minute, we've been here the X amount of last years. We have to draw from that. When one of your coaches takes you after the first quarter and says, don't worry about the score, this is what we have to do. Do you think the difference maker was actually adjusting those X's and O's, or was it an attitude adjustment? What do you think was the difference maker going into quarters 2, 3, and 4?
Yeah, I think it was definitely the X's and O's. I think we needed the ball. We didn't have the ball, and you need possession. And turnovers, you can't turn the ball over. So I think it was definitely X's and O's. And we have the smartest coaches, some of the smartest coaches in the world. And we were also competing against one of the most talented, smartest coaches, Kelly Monty, in the world. So definitely an insane environment to be in, but we made some adjustments. And that's something too that I think is really special and unique about our team is that when we're practicing at practice and maybe it's going really well and you don't need to make an adjustment on the field, our captains and our defensive leaders, for example, will say, okay, you know what, we're going to make a change and we're going to practice this defensive set or this defensive play for no reason other than just to practice it and to make an adjustment and to practice, okay, something's going really well or not going really well. Now we got to switch our game plan entirely. And so I think that wasn't just something that our team just turned on. That was something that we've practiced since last September. And so I think for the coaches to come in and say, hey, this is what we got to do, X, Y, and Z, and for our leaders to lead the way and do that, we've done it. Like we've done it before in many practices. So I think you're right. I think it was definitely the X's and O's. And then that's when our heart and soul for trying to win just caught on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the momentum carried forward. I was reading about some key saves your goaltender made, especially at the end there. Heart rates, take me through your heart rate or, what that was
Oh my
like
gosh. Yeah.
watching those saves. Yeah.
It was insane. I love that you brought that up because I honestly blacked out during that. I was on the sideline. So I was completely in shock of what was going on because there was a free position goal that could tie up the game. It was a huge moment. And I could see the camera guy right below me kind of filming our reactions. And I was trying not to let him distract me because he was kind of standing at our feet, right by my feet. And so we got the camera guy right at my feet. I got my teammates pulling on my jersey because they're freaking out. And so I actually earlier in the game I looked over at my teammate Kit and I said, Kit, I love you to death. You can grab onto my jersey. Just don't rip the jersey. Please don't rip my jersey. And so we're all grabbing onto each other. We got chaos around us. You can barely hear anything. The crowd is going crazy. And Shea Dolce, our goalie sophomore, just made this insane kick save. And what's funny is I was to basically win us the game. And I was in the equipment room when we got back to Boston College, just grabbing my jerseys because I'm a senior. I'm going to take them. I'm leaving. I'm getting all of my last things. And I overheard them talking that they wanted to frame Shay's left cleat, the cleat that made the save. They wanted to frame her left cleat, which was crazy because just watching it live, I didn't even realize that it was a kick save. I just kind of saw the ball go and then you freak out and then you don't remember anything because you have so much adrenaline. But rewatching it back, there were a few Boston College fan accounts that said, hey, hold your finger here on the dots and you can slide through, watch the progression of Shay's save, and it's blown up everywhere. So that was an insane moment. Honestly, I barely remember even seeing the ball fly out because it was so crazy. My own teammates' arms in my face. We were all pulling on each other. We had camera people everywhere. But yeah, those are moments that you're never gonna forget. And I just think it's so funny that they wanna frame her left cleat. It's awesome.
I love that. Yeah, no, I mean, might as well commemorate it. Maybe she wants it. I don't know what her plan with it is, but I'm sure she can get another pair unless that's a lucky pair. But I love that. And I love, feeling how in the moment you guys were. And yeah, the media, the cameras are like, you notice them, but you're like, like, I don't want to notice you. There's so much
Yeah.
chaos going on at the time. Now, so obviously, like, there's so much I can pick apart in this game. Any other moments stand out for you that you were there? Obviously, the comeback, scoring,
Mhm.
getting that momentum, a couple of saves. Any other moments stand out for you?
Yeah, there were a few insane goals that our team had. There was one where we had a defensive stop into a offensive goal. And that was a huge thing that our team talked about all year was, hey, if our defense is going to make a stop, we need our offense to capitalize. And that's how you really get your momentum in sports is when your
Right.
defense makes a stop and then you're able to, in that same play, get a goal. And we did that in a transition goal. Rachel Clark scored. She weaved through like 3 defenders. And that was a really cool moment because for me, just from watching it, I was like, okay, that was kind of risky. We wove through a few people. We threw these long passes that we had practiced, coming back to the ball all year instead of like kind of catching it over your shoulder. And so it was more of a risky play, but we needed that. We were down. We needed to catch up. And for our team to kind of make that risky play, the defensive stop, and capitalize with an offensive goal, that was a moment that I'll never forget just because of how many times we have practiced that, talked about it, and it actually happened, and it helped us win the game. So that was awesome. But I think something, too, that's really unique and special to our team is I don't know if you can see it on the live broadcast. I actually still have to go back and watch it. But we have these big posters with our play calls and our like lines, that what we call our lines. So like our top line is called gold, our second line is called maroon, and then we have like our play calls, which I won't name out here, but we have big poster boards, and because of that experience that our team has been to these Final Fours, we know the crowd noise is crazy. You're not going to be able to hear your coaches or your teammates on the field, so we have these massive white poster boards that say, hey, this line's up, money, Vegas, some of our line changes, gold, neon. We have like our rides, our motions. And so what will happen is one of the girls, and for some of the time it was my sister Mallory, she would hold up a sign to the crowd that said LNIE, line. So Mallory would go 3, 2, 1, line, meaning, hey, players on the field, turn your head, look to the sideline, and get the new play call with the new poster that's being held up. And what's so funny is I came home, and we've been doing this for 4 years now. I came home, and my mom said, hey, what play is line? Like, is it get it to Emma behind the goal? And she goes to, like, line isn't a play. Line is just to get us to look at the play. But it's just funny how the crowd didn't even know what was going on. They just knew all I got to do was scream my head off, help the girls. So I think when you can involve the crowd, and not only like the crowd, it's our alumni in the front row who played in this game last year, who would do anything to see our team win it and, take back that story. It's our family members. It's our friends. It's our college friends who have graduated, don't live in Boston. We had one come from Denver. Like, to have those people be involved in the game so tightly. We don't win the game. We do not win the game unless we can hear what's going on and we can hear the play calls being made. And that was just a really cool, to be able to do that and win was really cool to do it with that group of people.
I love that. I love the innovative, being so innovative with the signs and the code names. So it's just like one word. It's easy. You guys know it. Practice the crowd being involved. No, all awesome stuff. I'm going to ask, I know our producer, Carolyn's been talking. I can't hear her. So Carolyn, how much time do we have left? Okay. We still have time. Good. I want, because we're going to transition to PWHL stuff, Annabelle, but obviously congrats to your team. I love the inside experience, and we have just a little bit of time left. So just wrap up with this about how you bookended the championships, for you guys, and then we'll move on to PWHL.
Yeah, it's the perfect word. And it wasn't a word that we were talking about all year until we got to the Final Four. The night before the semifinal game, we had a video sent from our alumni, which was absolutely incredible. So emotional just from the words that they spoke. And our goalie, from last year gave this short speech, and she basically just said, hey, bookend this thing. You got to bookend it. And for some reason, it stuck with every single person on our team. And in that semifinal game, there was actually a rain delay right before we went on to the field. So, now we've been already getting ready for 3 hours. Now we got to sit in the locker room again. Like, how do you keep your momentum up? How do you stay loose? And right before we went out during that rain delay, we played her speech over the speaker. And it kind of became the anthem of our team for that whole Final Four weekend. Rachel Hall, she's awesome. She has a younger sister, freshman on the team. So to have that connection and to be able to say, hey, we're going to bookend this, that was that kind of theme that got us through it. And she actually had a little sign that said bookend in the stands that we got some awesome photos of. But it really truly was a bookend. And to be able to have our class, my 2024 class, start with that championship and end with that championship, it's honestly so incredible, and just have learned so much from that. But the cool piece of it is that wasn't something that Team 32 created. That was something that Team 31, Rachel Hall, started and brought into our team. And so it really just shows the family of Boston College Women's Lacrosse and how tied and invested everyone really is.
I love that. And I love that you guys played that speech over the speakers to the rain delay. Like, you guys are really getting all the resources, from like cards to audio to whatever. Like, you guys are all out, like definitely using all the resources. But obviously, great story. I honestly could keep going on it, but I do want to give some love, obviously, to the PWHL, not just the Boston team, Boston and Minnesota in the final of the Walter Cup, Boston forcing a game 5. So best of 5 series last night at Tsonga Center, sold out arena. Not only that, so the total was 6,305 fans in what was being called all season like a 5,000 person arena. So they squeezed in another, 1,000. I heard it was bursting at the seams, people standing, watching, wherever they could be. And that is such a, like, it made I could hear it. I was watching it. Obviously, I could hear the crowd chanting, thank you, Boston, at the end, even though they lost. Like, such a win, such a positive win. And what I love about that number is that that's all they could fit in because of the size. Whereas we went throughout the season, I don't want to misquote it, but upwards of 18,000 people in some arenas, NHL arenas, that were showcasing the PWHL. I know, for example, PWHL Boston is going to be looking for another space that's bigger, that's closer to downtown, just so that it's more accessible. So that number, the fact that it was sold out, great sign. But I know it would be bigger if there was the capacity. And the ticket sales, I think we're starting at $250, somewhere around there, and capping out at around $3,100. And the reason, not only does that show the demand, which is great, but I like bringing money into this, is because as much as passion and momentum and movements can do for a sport, money is very important. And that's why the Walter Cup, the Walter family, invested a lot of money into this and put their faith and their money into the women's game. And when you know that you're bringing in these numbers and you can charge this amount, that's only positive for what you're going to be able to do and the resources with the league. So I wanted to give a huge congratulations out to them. I know you've been so busy with your finals, with the championship, but any thoughts on the inaugural season for the PWHL?
Yeah, it's awesome. And just to be in Boston and a Boston fan, like, we're a championship city, and for them to do that in their first year is like crazy. It's like, okay, so Boston, did we just do this? Is this just like a thing? So anybody who's looking to be in a championship, I guess you got to move to Boston and play Boston sports, because those women are doing it. And no, just so cool. And like you said, if you build it, they will come. Like, if you build the big stadium, you find the big venue, there will be people there. And I think we've even seen that with my team. When we got to play in Alumni Stadium, our football stadium, we had upwards of over 4,000 people come to our lacrosse games. We go to Cary, North Carolina, there's only 4,000 people there, and the stands are not even close to filled. And so I think you just shows you stadium size matters.
Yeah.
It does matter. It's huge. And I was texting one of the Boston College women's ice hockey players who knows some of the PWHL girls, and she was saying it's crazy. They're selling out like thousands of dollars for these tickets. It's crazy. And I just think it's that excitement is really fun and you can feel it. It's tangible. But you're right. I think with that stadium size, it's cool to see just in that first year where it really can go.
Yeah, so exactly like you mentioned in the first year, there's so much that has happened this year and some things that haven't even been fully developed and yet they got off their season, their league off to a good start, but a couple of obvious ones. So the teams don't even have names. PWHL Boston, PWHL Minnesota, PWHL Montreal, that's what we're calling them. So next year there's going to be names, which is great. And I don't know exactly the reasoning. I think maybe they didn't want to rush it, which I like. Like this is going to be your brand and your name forever. I don't think you want to rush something and then be like, oh God, we take that back. So I also like, in a way, I as a broadcaster, sometimes it was wordy to say that, but in a way I like it because it was more about the league than about each team, because you had to say PWHL Boston versus PWHL Toronto. And it just reminds you of like, this is a league of people coming together as opposed to, the Boston Bruins or the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's like, you wouldn't say the Boston NHL team, you would call it by its name. But I like that you had to kind of have that reminder. So names should be coming out. Bauer is now the official first partnership of jerseys with the PWHL. They're talking about how the design is going to change a little bit, logo design, obviously team names, mascots, all that kind of stuff. Bauer's a huge name in hockey and they have a lot of money to spend. And I love that this partnership is already out there and brands are jumping on. So among other things, like we talked about arenas, there's a whole list of things that are going to be growing for the PWHL, but that's what I love. Year one, and we're seeing this expansion already.
No, it's awesome. I'm excited to see the logo. I'm excited to see what the gear looks like. I can imagine it's going to blow up everywhere in Boston sports and on these shops. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm excited about the names. I know some rumors have been floating around. We actually had a player on from the team and asked her about a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week, asked her about if they get a vote. And she was like, I don't think we have a vote. I think the players should, but then again, you could get traded or, retire or whatever, and maybe not. But I hope they're consulted in some way, at least GMs and management. But I'm really excited to see what the names could be. And then, we can officially have mascots and Twitter accounts and so on and so forth. But such a successful inaugural season. What I loved, we talked about your goalie who made that kick save that you might frame the cleat. Erin Frankel, she was getting the crowd cheering her name at the end of the game or throughout the game. She was one of the superstars for PWHL Boston, even though they lost in the final. But I like this goalie theme we have going on in Boston. Jeremy Swayman, there's like Swayman for president t-shirts out there. Linus Allmark, obviously, I feel bad. He's kind of left in the shadows there, but the reigning, that's gonna change this year, but the reigning Vezina Trophy winner had an unbelievable season. Obviously, Swayman stood out in the playoffs, but there's some hot goalies in Boston. I feel like they should collaborate, and including yours, and maybe do something on social media together.
That is such a good idea. I'm gonna tell Shay that. And see if we can make that happen. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, you should reach out to Frankel and Sway should get involved. I'm sure they'd be down, but obviously the goaltending in Boston is not an issue. Going back to so you graduated and your championship, what are the options before we wrap up the show? What are the options for women now post career, lacrosse career? How can they continue their careers? I know some former students are into coaching right now. What about leagues? Like, what are the options there?
Yeah, that's a big thing. Coaching is a huge thing. I know a lot of girls that will probably become graduate assistants at different programs, which is an amazing opportunity. But we actually have a few girls going pro. I think we had 3 or 4 of my teammates got drafted for the Professional Women's Lacrosse League, AU Pro it's called. It's in the summer. There is that difficulty with, hey, some of them already signed on their job offers in New York City. Like, can I actually do this opportunity? Wow. So I think people still have to work through that, but that's the reality of it, right? The Pro Women's Lacrosse League is not something that you can make your full-time job unless you have other opportunities outside of that and you have that summer free. So super excited for my teammates that got drafted. I was driving my car to lunch Press Cafe in Newton, the best place in the entire world. Please, like everyone needs to go there. It's the best.
Yeah.
And I was driving my car, and my teammate had the draft up on her phone, and one of my teammates got drafted. And I'm like, I'm screaming, freaking out. I almost got in a car accident because I was going so crazy. And when we sat down, we actually got to watch the next 3 girls on my team get drafted. So that league is in the summer, I believe in late July, August. It's in Maryland, so easy to get to road trip if you want to see a game from Boston. But yeah, that's the opportunity there right now, and obviously the U.S. opportunity as well. That's a lot more selective, as people know, but just for women's lacrosse players to have the opportunity to play professional lacrosse, is it where the PWHL is? No. Is it something that, you can have a no other job with? No, but neither is this, right? And so that's what we talked about in the beginning. And so I think there's a long way to go, but it is really cool and exciting to see some of my teammates, girls in my grade, getting drafted that now get to go play pro with my coach. My coach is a pro. So just to have that connection, and for me to be able to have to cheer on my teammates in that space is something that I honestly never dreamed that I would get to do. And now that I can say that I have teammates and former teammates who are professional athletes, it's sick. It's so crazy. It's crazy. And you never think about that growing up. So super cool. And I hope I can catch some games.
I'm sure you can. And I want to congratulate you too as we wrap up and say goodbye. But thanks for joining us again on 2 national championships, by the way, bookending your career with the BC Eagles. And congrats on that. Thanks for sharing your stories. And I'm sure we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. And go Eagles! Woo! For life.
Go Eagles.